it should come as no surprise to you that this month's wrap up is audiobook heavy. If you've seen my Battle Books vlog, you will know why. Welcome to my August wrap up. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Catriona and I make bookish content here on this channel at least twice a week, and then movie reviews or book to movie content here at the weekend. All of my social links are in the description box below, including my blog and my Goodreads, so you can keep up with my reading in between times. And I did mention that About a Book's reading vlog, which contains thoughts on 10 of the books that I'm going to talk about here on this channel. I will leave it linked up above. I am also very, very close to my next subscriber milestone. So if you are not already subscribed, please do join our team. And if you are already subscribed, leave me a comment below letting me know how we should celebrate getting to that next subscriber milestone. I am so open to suggestions. I would love to know your thoughts on that. Okay, always break my wrap-ups down into ebooks, physical books and audiobooks. Always finish with audiobooks because they're always the longest category. But I do have a lot of my audiobooks as physical books this month, so I've been flicking back and forth, and as far as I know, I think I am at 23 books for the month, but tell me in comments if I'm wrong. I was putting this together quite late last night, so yes. Ebooks first of all. I read A Perfect Paris Christmas by Mandy Baggot. I am actually on the blog tour for this adult romance. It's not the most Christmassy of books. I thought it was going to be a little bit more Christmassy, but you'll be able to see my full written review on my blog on Sunday, and that is linked below. And then one that I already have a written review of on my blog, because as you are watching this, the release date for both these ebooks is today in the UK, 3rd of September. I will leave the links to the books as always in the description box as well, in case you want to order or pre-order. And this is Us Three by Ruth Jones, which was just fabulous. If you have watched that About a Book's reading vlog already, well done, because it's so long. But also you will see me fangirling over this book. It is just so good. If you enjoyed One Day, if you liked early Marion Keyes, early Lisa Jewell, you will love this one. And if you like books with Welsh characters, because there are not enough of them around, you will also like this one. Highly recommend. It is out today in the UK, I believe in all formats today as well. Then swiftly moving on from ebooks, I did better with ebooks last month, but my aim was to get my physical books off my shelf read this month. That theme's sticking around for the month of September. So the only physical book I read this month, it's still got the bookmark in it, is All the Acorns on the Forest Floor by Kim Hooper. Again, I talk a little bit more in detail about the individual stories in this book in that reading vlog, because yes, this is a collection of short stories all tied together with the theme of motherhood and being a mother and expectant mothers and people who want to be mothers but can't, and people who don't want to be mothers and have to explain that to their friends. And so this does come with care warnings for baby loss, obviously given the theme, but I really enjoyed this one as well. And I love the fact that it was story that I could sit down, read the whole story and walk away and come back and not have like lost my track in the book. Also, some of the characters in one story will be brought up again in another story, or we might get to meet them in their own story if they were a side character in an earlier story. So that was really interesting. I do have a copy of Kim Hooper's last novel, Tiny, which I have not read yet and is still sitting on my shelves, so maybe we'll try and shoehorn that in somewhere in September, but it's looking like September's going to be quite busy for me, so we'll just, you know, maybe. It's a maybe for me on that one. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and this one is out on the 15th of September, and I will have a link to this in the description box below as well. And then that's it for ebooks and physical books. We're now moving on to audiobooks. Let me know in the comments, do you have one particular format that you lean towards more than others? Does it depend what's going on in your life? I've just, since everything started being just a little bit weird with the world, I have relied so heavily on audiobooks, and so that is why from March onwards my wrap-ups are audiobook heavy. But I think they've always been more audiobooks than other formats, but I'm just really struggling to kind of sit down and read an ebook or sit down and read a physical book just now. So let me know in the comments, does that happen to you? What was your month like? Audiobooks, physical books, ebooks? Is there one format that you just don't do? I know a few people have that thing where they don't think that audiobooks are reading, but I can talk happily about all of these audiobooks, no problem. So yes, first of all, let's go with a couple that I don't have physical copies of. I listened to A Very Punchable Face by Colin Jost, and I do go into a full detailed review of this one in my recent video talking about 5 non-fiction audiobook recommendations. So I will leave that linked up above. And then another book I also talk about in that video is Sorry Not Sorry by Naya Rivera. So yes, if you want to hear my thoughts on either of those, you can go ahead and watch that video. But another one that is a non-fiction audiobook that I didn't talk about in that video because I hadn't read it yet. I pretty much listened to this one in one solid chunky sitting last week. And this is Coming Undone, a memoir by Terry White. I was turned on to this novel by Lindsay Kelk, who is good friends with Terry White, and yes, this is a memoir. The audiobook is read by the author, and I'm not gonna lie, this is a very tough listen. She has not had an easy life and has overcome a lot of obstacles to get to where she is today, and talks very, very openly about that. This one does come with care warnings for abuse, neglect, addiction, self-harm, suicide. It's not an easy listen, but it packs a punch, and it definitely makes you kind of like look at your own life and think about what you're doing, and also made me want to reach out to like friends and family as well and just check in with them, especially during this like I say, weird world that we're living in right now. So yeah, I am so pleased that I was turned on to this one, and I enjoyed the audio as well. If enjoyed is the right word, it's so difficult when something deals with such tough subjects. I was fully immersed in her story, and yeah, wow, I'm still kind of digesting it because I did just listen to it last week. But yeah, if I'd have read that one by the time I made that 5 audiobook video, I probably would have talked about that one there. And then another couple that I do not have physical copies of, I listened to I'll Be the One by Lyla Lee. My recording really does not like this like colour balance. Oh my goodness. This one surrounds a kind of TV talent show in the style of like America's Got Talent, X Factor, The Voice type of thing, but there's a separate K-pop dance side of it and a separate K-pop singing side of it, and then there's a couple of big stars who are entered in this one, and then we have our main character here who is obviously not your typical size or personality of the contestants that they have on that particular show. I loved all the diverse characters in this book, and I really liked the whole like reality TV show contest type of thing as well, because I really like watching those shows when I allow myself to do so, which I don't often because I get sucked in, and I got quite sucked into this one and listened to this one in kind of one big chomp. I liked what it was doing, I liked what it was saying, and I was entertained as well. And then I listened to Faith Taking Flight by Julie Murphy, which is also a YA fiction novel, and this one is actually an origin story of superhero Faith, who I had not heard of before. And I love Julie Murphy and I love what she writes and her characters, but this one just felt a little kind of muddled to me. I really liked Faith's story. Faith is obviously fat and Faith is queer and Faith has had some tough times in her life, so I really liked the part where she kind of wasn't a superhero. I liked her real life, I liked her normal life, because we do have a kind of villainous type of character in here, and that's in the superhero side of it. And the two sides of the story just felt very separate to me. It felt like they weren't particularly well blended together, and so that's why it felt a little bit muddled and a little bit mixed. I felt like the book itself was having a bit of identity crisis, and I really liked the story of Faith and her like normal non-superhero life. I liked the romance, and I liked what Faith had to say for herself and about herself, and the non-apologetic for being fat and queer and what have you, but then when it kind of like mixed in the other superhero-y type stuff, I was a bit like, oh, where are we going now? Why are we like flipping back and forth? So it was a very much mixed book for me. I think I would like to look into that character a little more, and I don't know if Julie Murphy's writing more kind of prose books about Faith because she's kind of a comic book hero. If we're gonna have more prose about Faith, I would pick it up and see where it goes, kind of give it a second look, a second chance if you like. But yeah, that one felt really quite muddled. And then I listened to Not Like the Movies by Kerry Winfrey, which is an adult rom-com and is the follow-up novel to Waiting for Tom Hanks, which came out the same time last year. And I do talk a little bit more about this one in that About a Books reading vlog. Needless to say, it was just lovely to listen to a rom-com. I liked what it was saying. I really enjoyed Waiting for Tom Hanks, and this was a really great follow-up novel. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was just nice, a solid 4-star read, and it was good to have mixed into that readathon for me as well. And then I also listened to, which was actually on my TBR, this was the first book I listened to. This one is Stamped, which is by Jason Reynolds and is a remix of the National Book Award winning Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, and this one obviously talks about racism, anti-racism, and what you can do and how you can take action. And so a lot of these books have talked about being in a sort of minority, whether you are queer or whether you are not white or not straight or not thin, and so this was really a good way to kick off my month, and obviously I love Jason Reynolds' writing, and he narrates this one as well, so it was great to listen to on audio. I would be tempted to listen to the full book. I just have to make time and listen to that. I believe my library has the full book as well as the young adult version of it, but I think this was definitely a good introduction. And then one that I talked about as well in that audiobook review video, I listened to Mum Life by Louise Pentland. Louise Pentland is of course a massive star here on YouTube, and this is her book talking about her own mum life, what nobody ever tells you about being a mum, and just to say, you don't have to be a mum to enjoy this. I laughed a lot with this one, I also cried a lot with this one, and I go into a little bit more detail about this in that audiobook video. If you haven't already clicked over to that. Then a couple more that I don't have physical copies of, and then we'll move over to the physical copies ebooks section of the video. I listened to You Say It First by Kate. So I keep saying Katie Cotugno, but I think the G is silent. So Katie Cotugno or Catriona. But this one was just really, really, really sweet. Meg is working as a telemarketer, trying to get people to register to vote. This is young adult romance. I had not listened to anything from this author, but then I read Rules for Being a Girl, which she wrote with Candice Bushnell, who I love. And so I was like, I need to pick up one of hers. This is her latest release. My library had the audiobook of it, so I listened to it and it was so cute. It was so sweet. I love the fact that she is very forward about politics and what politics means and what politics means to the people that she's calling up. She registers them to vote. She makes sure that they have access to be able to vote on voting day, and then she calls this guy up and he is very like, well, you know, why should I vote? Why should I listen to you? You're just being like really bossy right now. I don't want your political opinions. And yeah, it's kind of a bit of an enemies to lovers type of thing. However, they both have other issues going on in their lives that teens today have to deal with. They both have issues with their parents, which is a common theme in YA romance novels, but what's going on in their lives really impacts their own life. So what's going on in their parents' lives really impacts their own life, and so it was really interesting to see them kind of come together to deal with that together. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. And then I also listened to, oh, this is a really rubbish picture, Bookish and the Beast by Ashley Poston. This is the third novel in the Geekerella world. It deals with new characters though, and it's just, I love these books. I have a whole video talking about Ashley Poston's previous novel, and it's an event vlog as well as a review, so I will leave that linked up above. This is YA romance. It's diverse and queer and involving Comic-Cons, and I'm just here for it, and it was just lovely. It was a lovely listen. There's nothing else really to say about it other than it was just nice. And then I listened to, oh, my picture hasn't come up. There it is. The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate, and I listened to this one in one little sitting before sitting down to watch the movie on Disney Plus, because this is a Disney Plus original movie, I believe, and I have a book versus movie coming out, so make sure you hit that notification bell so that you get notified when this one pops into your subscription feed. This one is middle grade fiction, and I talk a little bit more about the ins and outs of it in that video that is coming up, so I'm going to say no more on that subject. And then I think we're ready to move on to books that I have physical copies of. Yes we are. How exciting. So I did well for reading Book of the Month Club books this month. I listened to the audiobook of Head Over Heels by Hannah Orenstein, and this features a former gymnast who comes in to coach a current gymnast, and there is a bit of a romance between her and the coach, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun. I enjoyed listening to this as I was out and about in the car on my way to work and what have you, and I would consider reading Hannah Orenstein's previous novel, which I think is Love at First Like. Oh, Playing with Matches is also her too. But yeah, I've been interested in reading Love at First Like, and so when this one came up as a Book of the Month Club pick, I decided to pick it up and see what I thought of her writing. But I did enjoy this one. It was a solid, again, a kind of solid 4-star read. Then I also listened to one of my I listened to 2 of my August Book of the Month Club picks, but the first one of these was The Night Swim by Megan Goldin, and this one covers a true crime podcaster as she goes back to follow a trial of an accused rapist, but there is a previous case that I think she's covered it on the podcast before, to do with a sort of similar crime that involved with somebody drowning after they went on a night swim, and she ends up kind of uncovering details to do with that as well. The audiobook was really good because we've got the kind of narrative of what's going on, and then we switch over and we get to listen to the actual podcast. So I think in the book it's probably marked as a different kind of font. Yes, it is. So we've got like season 3 episode 5, The Drive, and the podcast is called Guilty or Not Guilty, and in the book it has a different font, and then on the audiobook we have like introductory music, and then she goes into kind of her like podcast voice. This one was super creepy, but I really like the fact that it dealt with a true crime podcast, which are like, you know, the #1 downloaded podcast, and this also reminded me of the whole Golden State Killer, I'll Be Gone in the Dark type of book. It was a bit like sort of mirroring that a little bit in the book, but with a podcast. So I really like that like multi-format, and it's been a while since I listened to a thriller as well, so it was interesting listening to a thriller, so I enjoyed that. Then another August Book of the Month Club pick. This one is Luster by Raven Leilani, and this one is kind of hard to describe. So no one wants what no one wants, and how do we even know what we want? How do we know we're ready to take it? Eddie is stumbling through her 20s, sharing a subpart apartment in Bushwick, clocking in and out of her admin job, making a series of inappropriate sexual choices. She is also haltingly, fitfully giving heat and air to the art that simmers inside her. And then she meets Eric, a digital archivist with a family in New Jersey, including an autopist wife who has agreed to an open marriage with rules. And this one was really engaging. Once I'd started listening to it, I just kept listening to her just making all these really, really poor choices and wanting to go into the novel and tell her what she was doing wrong and what she should be doing, and just really help her out. And she thinks that she's kind of doing her best, and she is doing her best, but her best just isn't working, and so she needs to change things up. And this is like, when you're in your 20s and you're trying to, like, #adult, after graduating and trying to make a life for yourself, especially in a city like New York, it's tough, it's hard, and so I really feel for her. This had a bit of a feeling of sweet bitter, so if you like that one, you will like this. And I thought the audio narration was pretty good as well. It was fairly easy to follow, and yeah, it felt longer than, it's just over 220 pages, but it definitely felt longer than that. Yeah, this is 200. I don't know why these pages at the end just won't happen, but this also does come with some care warnings for, it's just very brutally honest. It's 227 pages. Very brutally honest. Comes with care warnings for abuse within relationships and also for baby loss as well. So just bear those in mind. Then during the Bout of Books readathon, I listened to Creatures, which was gifted to me by my lovely friend Crystal. This is by Crissy Van Meter, and this is like adult literary fiction, which Luster was as well. And generally, if it's a coming of age story, I like that. But Creatures, I think it just wasn't for me. I listened to the whole thing, but I didn't find it terribly engaging, and I didn't find it terribly memorable. Some of the prose, some of the description was wonderful, but this one is like basically the same length as Luster, but felt that one felt longer in that it was a really decent story and I was really into it, whereas this one felt longer because it was dragging for me, and I just think it just wasn't for me. But that beautiful cover, and it does have some wonderful description in it, so what can I say? Just have a sip here. If you haven't taken a sip of water yet, get yourself some water. We are nearly done, just a few more books left on the physical pile. I listened to The Matchmaker by Catriona Innes, and the Matchmaker looks like your kind of classic rom-com, boy meets girl, matchmaker's lonely, she needs to look into her own love life, but actually The Matchmaker has an awful lot of stuff going on that she is not telling anyone about, and she needs to, and that is kind of her we see a little bit of a downward spiral in this book. But I really enjoyed this novel. I really loved the setting. Yeah, I mean, this little tagline on the back here says, Caitlin, our matchmaker, is living the perfect life, except it's all a perfect lie, and Caitlin doesn't know how long she can keep it up. And this was another one of these where I really wanted to go into the novel and just, you know, sit down and have a glass of wine with Caitlin and talk to her about it, or sit down and have a croissant with Caitlin and talk to her about it, and make sure that she was going to be okay, because she was dealing with some stuff. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. The audio was great as well, apart from the fact that the narrator does mispronounce the author's name, and I'm allowed to say that because I have the same name as the author. So I was very incensed when I got to the very end of the book and heard the mispronunciation of the author's name again. I was like, no, this is not how you say this name. This name is Catriona. But yeah, I just enjoyed it and I recommend it. I have a written review coming up on my blog very soon. Then, speaking of books that are politically charged, I seem to have read a lot of those recently. It must be a wonderful trend in young adult fiction. I listened to The Voting Booth by Brandy Colbert because everybody else had been reading this one and raving about it, and I bought into the hype. You know me, normally I'm scared of the hype and leave it at least a year, but I bought into the hype on this occasion and I am glad that I did. I listened to this in 2 big chunks. It was very good. It deals with political choices and voting in particular, but it also deals with blackness and racism and white privilege and systemic racism, and it also deals with feminism to an extent as well, which I loved. The audiobook was great, and yeah, if you are looking for more books to do with politics, we have You Say It First and The Voting Booth, both YA romance contemporary novels that deal with politics really well and also deal with other things that young people have to go through today. Speaking of racism and systemic racism and white privilege, I listened to Motherhood So White by Nefertiti Austin, a memoir of race, gender and parenting in America. This book was very good. It is good as a sort of introduction to the fact that in America, motherhood equals white. I would have liked the book to have gone into a little bit more depth. I feel like she kind of skimmed some subjects and went into more depth in areas that were a little bit quote unquote safer to talk about. I was expecting a little bit more kind of like groundbreaking, shattering, very, very direct, very, very like not abrupt, but very sort of honest and right, like no type of a book. And I think that she does go into a lot of subjects well, and especially well, she deals with race and gender, and so I think that maybe it would have been easier to just focus on one thing or the other. She would have been able to go into more depth, or it could have been slightly longer. So it was good and I enjoyed it, and I definitely learned a lot from it, especially having listened to Stamped, and especially having listened to like the voting booth. It was kind of backing up a lot of things that were being said in there. I liked as well that it kind of opens the door on adoption and fostering, where in particular where she lives, because she lived in Beverly Hills, I think. And I like the talk about white privilege, especially in that area too. So there was like very specific things that I really enjoyed, but I would have liked just a little bit more depth and a little bit more discussion around racism for her son that she adopted. But I do recommend it, and it is definitely a good starting point, and I would like to listen to more books like this. And it was, you know, some more non-fiction mixed in there. Then another book that was sent to me by my friend Crystal, which I read during the Battle Books readathon, so I won't go into too much detail here. And this one is The Sunday Girl by Pip Drysdale. This is an adult thriller novel. It was very dark, but very dark in a very different way compared to a lot of thrillers I've read, so I definitely recommend it, and you can see my thoughts as I'm reading this in that reading blog. And then another one that I talked about in that 5 non-fiction audiobook video, lost my train of thought there entirely, was Queen Meryl by Erin, Carlson, and I really enjoyed this one. I had a copy of this one, and then I let my library hold lapse and didn't listen to it, and then I had a physical copy and I didn't read it. And this is one of these where I might be tempted to get myself another physical copy, because it does have some beautiful art in here, and also some kind of side note moments as well. And so I did really enjoy this one, but I talk about it in full in that video. And I do have a little box set of Meryl Streep movies from my library to watch at my leisure as well, so I will be enjoying those, because I definitely need to reread and rewatch The Devil Wears Prada, so I can bring you a book versus movie here, of course. And then finally I read To Be Honest, which is another YA contemporary novel, and this one was recommended to me by Beautifully Bookish Bethany when we read One to Watch, because that one just didn't have the fat representation that we were looking for. It didn't have a lot of representation. It had the space and the kind of like stimulus to do so many different things, and it really didn't do. And she has a whole rant video talking about it, so I will leave it linked in the description box for you. But she recommended reading To Be Honest, and this is newsflash, fat isn't a bad word. And this one is about Savannah, who is dreading being home alone with her overbearing mother after her big sister and best friend goes off to college. But if she can just get through senior year, she'll be able to escape to college too. Why doesn't she count on what she doesn't count on is her mother's obsession with weight has only grown deeper since her appearance on an extreme weight loss show, and now she's pressuring Savvy even more to be constantly mindful of what she eats. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and again, similar to You Say It First, dealing with kind of what it's like when you feel a bit more like in control of your life than your parent, or you feel like you can't kind of rely on your parent. So that was interesting. I still feel like this book could have had more to say about being fat, especially being fat and being a teenager, and being fat and being a teenager who, you know, wants to have romantic relationships and what have you. I still think it could have said more about that, but it was interesting having the whole extreme weight loss reality TV show in a book, because I don't think I've seen that in a book before. And I have always been an avid viewer of The Biggest Loser. I've watched The Biggest Loser US, UK and Australia. I watched Celebrity Fit Camp. I watched the ITV version of Fat Camp, and so it was interesting kind of picking up that, well, what happens to one of these contestants afterwards and what happens to their family as a result of that, and that does deal with this in this book, so I thought that did that really well. And then I had one book that I was intending on reading, and I read a good, what did I read, 25%, 30% of it, and it just wasn't for me, and that was Pet by Aquake MZ. This is it here, I don't have it on the little tablet, and it wasn't engaging me, it wasn't really kind of doing anything for me, and so I decided to DNF it. And it's been a couple of months since I had a DNF, so I was fine walking away from that one. I have heard so many people say so many good things about that novel, and it is doing groundbreaking things in what it's saying, but it just wasn't for me, and so I decided to DNF it. And that happened like literally 2 days ago, so it was like, oh, I'm ending the month with a DNF, that's not so great. But aside from that, I have had a really good reading month. I've enjoyed a lot of the things I've read. The ebooks in particular, I was really pleased that I got to, and I did one physical book, so maybe we'll aim to do a couple more physical books in the month of September, or just get some more of these books behind me off the shelves and into somebody else's hands, because yeah, September's gonna be, it's gonna be full on. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite book, you can let me know what your favorite month is if you want, what your favorite book that you read in the month of August was. As I say, let me know how we should celebrate that next subscriber milestone, and if you aren't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and then click the bell to be notified when I post a new video. I have a lot of book versus movie videos and other exciting content coming up for you soon, so you're not going to want to miss that. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you with my next video.